Welcome to Mobility Yoga in April. Let's start as we usually do, getting comfortably seated, as balanced as you can be, and sitting upright as much as you can at this point in our practice today, and get in touch with your breath. If it helps you to rest a hand somewhere on your chest or belly or both, to start to feel how your breath is flowing through your body in this moment. You might also pick up on other subtle awarenesses, your heartbeat, maybe you're digesting, or maybe there are some indications of discomfort in different places of the body. And just kind of a loving exploration through your body here as you continue to focus on your breath and more into the present moment, just as it is. At some point, you can let your hands rest down, let your shoulders balance out. And then go ahead and shake your arms on out, even beside you here. And we're going to start to roll through your shoulders, getting a gentle activation, bringing awareness to these areas, and obviously slowly and gradually mobilizing more and more through these important parts of the body. You can keep it nice and subtle like we've started here, or if you have good shoulders and you're not experiencing any pain whatsoever, then we can go into a little bit of a bigger range of motion. This is the direction that if you were swimming, it would be a little bit more like doing the crawl stroke. But again, keeping it more subtle, perfectly fine, might be even more beneficial to some. We're just going to go through a few more times any way you like to, and then balance it out from your shoulders and shake out all the way through down through your hands and even your fingers. In fact, let's pay attention to our hands here for a moment. Bring your palms together. Notice how easily or not your palms can line up and all of your fingers can lengthen out as well. And if there's some stiffness there, maybe you could rub your hands together a little bit, give a little bit of massage, kind of warming and squeezing, anything that would feel good, until eventually you feel like you can comfortably line up all those fingers, each hand helping the other one out here. And then let's bring those hands on in closer to your heart center. We're going to do some Robin's breath, which is matching your movements with your breath. So we're going to start here with an inhalation. And as you exhale, we're going to extend your arms forward as comfortably as it can be for you. Then when you're ready to start your inhalation, separate your hands, arms opening wide, full inhalation. When you're ready to exhale, bring the arms forward, palms can touch together again, and then you're inhaling on back to your heart center. Exhale. We're going to do another round. This time we're going to add in a chin tuck and a little bit of a head chin lift as well. Just please do not let your head just drop back when we do that with an inhalation. But we're going to start here with a very lengthened spine. Inhaling and exhale, reaching forward and tuck your chin. Inhale, opening wide. Now lift your chin slightly, look up. Exhaling again, reach forward and tuck your chin. And inhale, bring your hands into your heart center, and exhale. Well done. We'll probably come back to a few more of those here, but for now, I want to get back into that shoulder mobility focus. This time is like you're doing the backstroke. Starting nice and subtle, paying attention to how things feel, always listening to and honoring your body. There's much wisdom within you, and yet if you ignore the signals and the signs and the messages, then you are more likely to injure yourself or aggravate an existing injury. So let's really honor ourselves through this process and be in the present moment enough so that your body can really tell you how things are feeling on each of these sides of your body, and doing whatever degree of movement feels really good for you. A few more times around. Beautiful. And then let's go ahead and relax your shoulders, shake out all the way down through your arms and your hands once again. Excellent, and let's bring attention all the way down into the lower body now. Feet and ankles, waking up by lifting your toes as much as you can off the floor, then transferring over to lift your heels as far as they can be. Using the surface beneath your feet to help you get the leverage to mobilize through these joints. So many joints throughout the bones of the feet, certainly the ankle, a pretty complex joint there that we want to be able to maintain a good degree of mobility. Not hypermobility, of course, but good mobility, because why? This very much equates to walking stride, a functional, safe way of heel, toe, strike, follow through, lifting your toes high enough so you don't trip off over them when you're walking. So really important, simple things we can do every day to help maintain a good level of functionality in our everyday lives. Why? Because we want to maintain our independence as long as possible. So hands on the sides of your chair, sitting up again as tall as you can be. We're going to feel some strength and tone start to come in as you lengthen and lean off to your right, off to your left. Maybe you're feeling a little sense of lift of your hip off the seat of your chair just a bit there. And if you do, maybe you can help inch your body just a little further forward on the seat of your chair. If that doesn't work so well, you can do this little more of a side crunch maneuver. You get a little bit more spinal movement from side to side, and obviously getting these oblique muscles here, the side body, the waist, to activate and to stretch. Can be another effective way to inching your hips just a little further forward on the seat of the chair. Obviously, too, you can use the same strategy to scoot yourself back more in your chair, too. I like to practice this kind of thing, both sitting in a chair and sometimes even on the floor, because getting your body in the best position possible before you might transition to standing or something like that, giving yourself optimal position on your chair, whether it's a couch, it's your bed, whatever it may be. A little further forward is always going to be more effective for coming to standing. So practicing those things so you can get yourself right where you need to be and make that transition when you're ready. Really strengthening now through the deep core muscles and giving yourself a slow rocking motion, maintaining a length of spine and be within a comfortable pain-free range of motion. We're having a bit of a focus on backs today, back mobility and stability. Nice balance of both we need for our comfort and functionality. So if you find that you lean back to a certain degree and you feel any touchiness in your back, then don't lean back that far. Find that range where you're mobilizing, yes, and feeling the strength and tone, but not going into pain. All right, I'm just gonna do one or two more here. And then sitting upright, nice and tall. Let's get back in touch with our breath now. If it helps to let a hand rest somewhere, now I'd like you to focus on deeper belly breathing if at all possible. So letting that breath come down as deeply into the lungs as you can, letting things expand out in different directions here around the lower ribs and maybe even into your belly. Feeling expansion. That gentle kind of deflating that follows after your inhalation. The diaphragm rises up. You work to expel all the breath out of your lungs to receive the next inhalation fully and completely. We're going to continue to keep that focus on the breath, or at least come back to it regularly throughout the practice for obvious reasons. But for now, I'd like to get us into a little bit more upper back and shoulders. I'd like you to start by squeezing your shoulders up by your ears, really feeling activation here. And then when you're ready to exhale completely, let them go. A few more times, squeezing up, activating, maybe even making fists to make it even more engaged, and then really let all that go on your exhalation. Maybe one or two more times. Good, And then when you're feeling complete on that, roll or shake out through the arms and the hands any way that feels good. You can let your hands rest on your thighs, or if you have arm rest on your chair, that might be comfortable as well. As you stay broad across your chest and shoulders, we're just going to start by mobilizing through your neck to turn your head slowly and comfortably around to look over each shoulder, and taking in the room around you, looking to the direction that you're turning towards, even activating some of those important eye muscles as you turn and look. Obviously, another functional ability that we'd like to maintain as long as possible, the ability to turn and take in as much of the periphery around us, especially when you're driving and we need to safely back up out of a crazy parking lot or something. This ability is super important. All right, taking it through your last turns, and then it's squaring off or pointing your nose straight ahead once again when you're complete with that. I'm gonna do another round of Robin's breath, and this time we're gonna activate the eyes maybe a little bit more along with the head tilt. So I'll guide you when we get there, but let's start here at heart center. Inhale completely. Exhale when you're ready to reach forward and tuck your chin, looking down. Now when you inhale and open wide, you're not only looking up with your eyes, but also lifting your eyebrows. You might look right, look left. Then when you're ready to exhale, reach forward, tuck your chin, and inhale, bringing the hands back into your heart center. We're gonna do another round here in a moment, but I'd like to address the hips and the pelvis here for a moment, because I'd like to incorporate that in to our next round of Robin's breath. So let's just go into any degree of pelvic tilt that you can comfortably. Tilting forward, an anterior tilt brings more arc into your lumbar spine. A posterior tilt, tilting backwards, eliminates more or less that lumbar curvature, and you might feel that extra stretch in that low back region. That should feel good. And of course you can match this movement with your breath, which we'll definitely get into here when we add in our Robin's breath along with. So one more pelvic tilt in each direction, and then coming into neutral pelvis, which is right in between those two tilts for you. It's in that neutral pelvis position that you are able to most effectively and comfortably really elongate up through the spine. If you're pulled into any one of those tilts to any degree, it's just more of a strain, and seems less likely that you're really going to feel long and lengthened and achieving that good open posture that is really more important for you physiologically, your body being able to breathe, and the organs being able to work effectively. Also psychologically, we know too, if you're able to sit up tall, be proud in your body's position, that has a obvious psychological effect as well. So pelvis, positioning, neutral pelvis, all that can come into play. So let's do another round of Robin's breath. We're going to add in the pelvic tilt on our next exhalation. So let's start inhale at neutral pelvis, then exhale, reach forward, tilt your pelvis back and tuck your chin. Then opening wide and tilting your pelvis forward as you look up. Exhale, go back into that pelvic tilt, back and chin tuck. Then neutral pelvis brings you into your lengthened spine as the hands come back into your heart center. Exhale, let's do another round. Inhale. Exhale, tilt and tuck. Inhale, tilt forward, open up, look up. Exhale, reach forward, tuck and tilt. And then inhale, neutral pelvis, long spine, hands come into your heart center. And as you exhale this time, we can just kind of shake on out there. Excellent. Okay, so neutral pelvis again, a very good position to be able to establish, especially if you're going to do any degree of spinal rotation. We did do a little bit of cervical spine rotation. Now I'd like to bring in a little bit more of the spine. So neutral pelvis, long length of spine is super important as you find any degree of rotation right around your central channel there, as long and lengthened as it can be. And of course, you're also turning your head and looking out over your shoulder. You might be able to look a little bit further now as you allow your chest and shoulders, rib cage, more of the spine to enjoy some kind of rotation, which a healthy spine is designed to do. A healthy spine is designed to move in 6 different directions, and this rotation is one of those. And I'm going to suggest maybe rotating around each side one more time. Long and lengthened spine the whole time, and then square off back to center once again. Full and complete breaths. Okay, mobilizing and bringing more body awareness into lower body and alternate heel lifts just to kind of feel the action there, lower legs, ankles, feet, toes. But then, if you can, let's fire up these deep core muscles even more to lift a foot off the ground. So you're going into some form of marching, rhythmic marching steps. It is perfectly fine to support your legs to get a nice balanced, equal kind of leg lift here as you march. But at some point, if you don't need your arms, let's get them trucking along with these marching legs. Remember, it's your opposite arm that comes forward with your lifted leg. So you get that kind of cross crawl activation, really good for the nervous system. But we're also coordinating, also good for the nervous system, upper body and lower body. So stomping your feet down harder is another option. It can bring more blood flow down through your legs into your feet. If you have any issues with neuropathy, especially in your feet or toes, this kind of impact stomping on a regular basis might really help you reactivate and get the effect down through the soles of your feet needed to reverse that neuropathy. And you can also lift your knees higher to make it more challenging. You could go faster if you want to, really warming things up. Or also a good way of challenging yourself is to slow it down, like you're going into slow motion, feeling how hard your body has to work, especially if you lengthen out your arms a bit more now. Any way you like to do it for a little bit longer, unless you've already kind of felt like you're maxed out, you don't need to do any more, then you're just going to plant those feet and practice mindful breathing until we're ready to meet up with you. And I do think I'm starting to feel those signs of fatigue myself. I don't want to overdo it. We're still got lots more to do here today. So planting both feet when you're ready, sitting upright nice and tall, taking a few mindful breaths. And if you have water, some hydrating fluid close by, this might be a really great time to take a sip. I think I will. Hydration. We all know how important it is, but we all sometimes need reminders to actually follow through and do that as often as we need to. All right, sitting up nice and tall. Let's work for some mobility through the lower leg, right leg. I'll have you pick up your right leg, please, and you're mobilizing through your knee to extend and bend as comfortably as you can. The first few might be kind of loosening things up, activating the muscles, the hamstring, the quads here to do exactly what they're doing here, extending and bending at the knee. And then when you can, hold out as much extension as possible, either keeping your leg lifted up there, or if you want to put the leg down so your heel has got some contact beneath it, that might be a little easier. Try to flex your foot towards you as much as you can and really get the stretch here. One more breath. And then bending that knee, place that foot down and sit upright nice and tall. Keep connected with your breath, even as we go over to focus on your left leg, extending and bending at the knee, feeling it, going through whatever, again, is your comfortable pain-free range of motion, activating these good strong thigh muscles, and then let's go for the stretch, finding a full extension or as much extension as possible. You can get a decent stretch even if your knee is bent, and that's perfectly fine if that's what your body is needing. A good flex to the foot obviously will help that stretch out, especially going down to the lower leg, like through the calf and the Achilles tendon. It's all worth getting into here with some stretch. And then bending at the knee and placing that foot back on down. Sitting upright, nice and tall. Full and complete breaths. All right, we're going to go back to that leg extension and bend like we did first on your right side. We're going to add in a very specific way of tilting your head along with it, and that makes this exercise into something really beneficial for the nervous system. We call them nerve glides, where this longest nerve in your whole body, from the brainstem all the way down through the spine, your spinal cord, branches off, of course, here, and then moves down more or less the back of your leg to the heel area there. So really great to gently floss it, glide it through the structures to keep it healthy, actually, and pliable. We do need to keep those nerves pliable. So it goes like this. You'll start by extending your leg out as much as you can and lift your chin slightly looking up. Bend your knee, tuck it under your chair as best you can, your foot that is, and tuck your chin down towards the chest. And lengthen out, looking up, bend, and look down. Let's do about 5 more. You can coordinate your movement with your breath too, any way you like, but try to very much coordinate the head tilt with the bending and lengthening of your knee. Really get that effective glide all the way from the base of the skull, all the way down through your right heel. I'm going to do 1 more for now. And then eventually balance it out, put your right foot back down, lengthen up through your spine. Just notice if you feel any effects, or maybe you just feel kind of different from your right side to your left side. Then let's try that same thing on the other side. Left leg, give it some support. When you're ready to go to extension, lift your chin, look up, bend the knee, try to tuck your foot under your chair as best you can, tucking the chin down. Try to get into a nice rhythmic fluid flow here of this nerve glide exercise. Breathing with it as best you can. I'm going into an exhalation as I tuck my chin down, bending the knee. Inhaling as I extend the leg and look up. Just a few more times I think we need on this side. All right, when you feel complete and ready, lengthen your spine, put your left foot back on down, balance things out as you sit upright, nice and tall. A little bit of hip mobility next. So we can start by just guiding your right knee out and back to parallel with your foot still kind of more or less supported by the floor. But if it's comfortable for you, you can pick up your right leg, give it some support, and maybe you'll find a little more mobility through the hip joint here as you either just go out and in, or possibly go to zigzagging, where you come up a little bit higher and then you go down lower, exploring different ways of mobilizing your hip joint that, of course, are pain-free. One also has the option to go into a whole circular motion through the hip joint. It is a ball and socket joint. Not comfortable for everybody, but worth exploring. Certainly if you're getting any pain, any grinding, just come back to a real subtle range of motion that doesn't elicit that response. All right, I think we're probably good on this side for now. Let's bring that leg forward, parallel with the other one, sitting upright tall, and again, just kind of checking in, not only with your breath, but how different you might feel from your right to left side. Maybe it's just greater awareness on one side more than the other. So let's try to bring that same level of awareness into your left hip joint, a supported mobility exercise. You keep your foot down on something and guide that knee out and in to any degree. Otherwise, if you can, pick it up, give that leg support, and move out and in some way that feels good. And again, you could keep it just in a real specific plane that you know works best for you, or you could explore more with either zigzagging or circling. Yes, good. Really paying attention. Especially, it's worthy of noting if you have different degree of mobility on one side than the other, which is very, very common. We almost always have a tighter hip on one side than the other. And bringing that into your awareness is the first important step to then preventing that imbalance or asymmetry from going even further. Now, of course, you may have a hip replacement or an injury issue that you just have to honor and work with. But for many, many people, we've had a lifelong habit of, when we're sitting, either crossed over at the thighs or with the knee out to the side, we have a habit of doing that on one side more more than switching over on a regular basis and making sure we do a similar amount of time with that leg crossed, however it is. So good mindful awareness to help you feel like, oh, okay, yep, I've been on this side for, 5, 10, 15 minutes. I need to switch it on over and make sure I spend at least that much time with the other leg on top. Okay, back to sitting upright, nice and tall, both feet planted, getting in touch with your breath. Now, I'd like to take us all through a mindful transition series, which I do in every one of my classes. Why? Because this is designed specifically to help your functional ability to easily and safely transition as you need to so many times during the day. Sometimes in the middle of the night can be a really risky time for falls. So I like to take us mindfully through the steps because they are so good for us. They're very strengthening, heightened body awareness, and then when you need it the most, when you're getting out of a car and it's a slick surface or other tricky situations, you're going to have these abilities and hopefully confidence to know what to do and how to navigate that. So we start with looking down and noticing where your feet are. At least hips width apart or a little bit wider, as we will eventually get more weight bearing as we go through this series. But just noticing how your feet are placed is a really good first step. And always a wider base is going to be more stable than a narrow base with your feet. Then I'm rocking, slow rocking back and forth. Why? Well, really awakening your body, your nervous system, and turning on all through your deep core. Really important for any safe transition. Then this next one, you might want to kind of practice on its own. It's a little chair dip, where you're using your hands and your arms and your strong shoulders to give you a little bit of a lift off of your chair by pressing down. And then I like to return back down to the chair, doing that at least 3 or 4 times to activate the strength necessary to do that little boost. Checking in with wrists, of course, maybe shoulders have something to say about that, so don't overdo it. But returning back down to the chair too, slow and controlled, really good strengthening and toning and body awareness. The next stage in the transition series could take you a little bit more out of your chair holding a squat. So for this, you want your feet to be in a little bit closer toward your chair seat here. If their feet are too far out in front, to get the leverage that you need to stand up is going to be almost impossible. So keep that wide base, but make sure your feet are in a little bit closer. So for me, my knees are a little bit more over my toes now, all right? So you can always adjust that as you need to. So I'm still going to be rocking to make sure I'm coming from that good, strong place foundation. Then when you're ready, a little chair dip, giving you that boost, and then maybe you need to return back to your chair. You can do that as many times as you need to, but eventually maybe you can come and stay here, much more weight bearing now into your legs in your squat position. We all know how good and strengthening these are, and not only coming up out of the chair holding your squat, but also returning slow and controlled back down to your chair. So worthy of practicing on a daily basis. Some of you may find it's just, a piece of cake, no, why bother even thinking about it? But I promise you, there will come a day when you're really glad you thought about it, you've brought it into your awareness, and you've worked the strength that's needed to do this kind of thing safely. And of course, if this is all feeling good so far, strong and stable in your foundation, maybe you can go to a full standing position. And then coming back down again, slow and controlled. Stand up, sit downs. I have a lot of clients who try to do a minimum of 10 or 20 of these every day. Great practice, I find, as long as you're being mindful and just keeping it slow and controlled, not allowing yourself to plop back down in your chair as best you can. So, mindful transition series, in itself a really fantastic exercise, but this also leads us toward the potential to transition to a whole other level or layer or activity. And my idea here next is for us to move on down to the floor and onto hands and knees if that is comfortable for you. If it is not, you can either stay in the chair and simulate some of the things that I'm suggesting here, or you can lay down all the way onto your back. Sometimes, if it's knee touchiness, having a bit of a folded blanket under your knees can help alleviate some of that. Maybe there's things in the wrists or the shoulders that also have some tricks to help those guys stay happy. If you can stay in a hands and knees position a little longer, that's great. So table pose, think like a table, a stable table with the wrists more or less right below your shoulders and your knees more or less right below your hip joints. From that position, really lengthen through your spine in opposite directions. Cat-cow, so we did a seated version of this already, so hopefully it feels pretty natural to start to tilt your pelvis in each direction, rounding and really mobilizing the entire length of the spine. So it's all connected, moving the head, and it can be like a wave-like motion where you initiate the wave in your pelvis and then just kind of allow the rest of the spine and head to follow from there. Or you can just kind of feel like it's all connected, moving more or less simultaneously through here. This is an excellent, nourishing, healing, beneficial exercise here. Cat, cow, or I like to think of it as a coyote more than a cow, because a coyote kind of howling at the moon type energy, it's more active, it's more purposeful than a cow just hanging out in the field chewing its cud. So I've made my own adjustment in the terminology there, more of a cat, scared cat, and a howling coyote. Couple more times. All right, then back to neutral pelvis, long length of spine. How are you feeling? Wrists, knees, do you need to come out of the position? Do you just need to get into a position where you can give some nourishment, maybe some counter stretch for your wrists? Staying in table pose, one gentle way you can go about counter stretching your wrist is to let the back of your one hand rest on the floor, pretty much closer to your knee than out in front. And just not even really much weight into it all, just a little gentle placement there, and then doing the same kind of thing on your other side. If your shoulders, arms, or other things are feeling kind of fatigued, you want to break, and your knees don't mind a deepening bend where you sit your hips back towards your heels a lot more if possible. And this is moving into what we call child's pose, where you're going to try to get as comfortable as possible and let your head droop down, maybe even rest on the floor, or if you can stack one hand on top of the other and rest your forehead on the backs of your hands. If you have a yoga block around, you may be resting your forehead on your yoga block. But the goal is here to just get as relaxed and comfortable as possible, taking deep, full breaths and enjoying this nurturing, restorative pose for just a little bit longer. You're welcome to stay in these restorative poses longer if your body is telling you, oh, this is so much what I need. Staying longer in these things can be even more beneficial. But again, you might be feeling like your knees have had enough of that, or anywhere else. So coming up and out of it, and if at all possible, coming back to table pose, where we're going to do one of my favorite back strengthening and balance challenging exercises here, from hands and knees in a stable table position. We'll start with your legs. One knee is going to stay nicely planted down on the floor. So let's say your left knee stays where it is, and you're going to try to extend your right leg as much as you can out and behind you, where you could either keep your toes in contact with the floor, might be necessary to get the leverage or the length there, but at some point, if at all is possible, if you could lift that right leg away from the floor, maybe towards almost parallel with the floor, that can be an extra good challenge here, but either way is fine. So with that right leg extended, you're going to really come into your deep core and feel that crossing the midline energy that you need to do to try to extend your left arm more out in front of you. You can keep your fingertips on the floor out there as you reach, or again, if possible, maybe you can reach that arm away from the floor. So eventually, the real challenge here is, if you can lift the hand, lift the foot away from the floor, even just a little bit, and hold as you breathe. And I encourage encourage people to teeter-totter a little bit to really ignite the posterior chain to do what it is designed to do. Very strengthening, very toning, and also a great way of testing out balance, challenging your body's awareness, so that could transfer over to when you're doing some things in a standing position. Looks great. Whenever you're ready, we'll come back to table pose, and eventually we need to do the other side, obviously. Do you want to take a resting pose in between? Did child's pose feel good to you before? Maybe there's another position or need that you need to address with your body before you try this on the other side. Again, feel free to stay longer in any of these poses or positions, but when you're ready, I'm gonna start setting up for a good, strong bird dog experience. That's what I call this pose, by the way, when we get the opposite arm and leg reaching bird dog. But to start by coming from a good, strong foundation. That not only is your body positioning, but deep core engagement as well. Then when you're ready, keep your right knee where it is and lengthen out through your left leg as much as you can. Keeping the toes in contact with the floor. You can getting a little stretch back through the heel there if that feels good. But again, eventually, if possible, we're going to try to lift that left leg away from the floor. Feeling all that strong posterior chain come on to create this strong pose. Then whenever you feel ready, you're gonna try to reach your right hand and fingertips further out away from you on the floor in front of you, or possibly reaching up and away from the floor, where again, strong, steady. Don't forget to breathe and teeter-tottering a little bit here. Really a very beneficial part of the exercise. Yeah, good. So the goal is to become stronger and more balanced in this position where you're able to hold it for longer periods of time. So that's kind of how you want to gauge that one. Taking a resting pose, many of you, I imagine, might be feeling ready to get off of hands and knees. And so a really great counter pose instead of child's pose, it's actually very much like child's pose, but on your back instead. So if you could, come on down to your back comfortably. Now again, you could be staying in the chair or come back to your chair, recline back into your chair and do many of these exercises while still supported in a chair, all right? If you're on the floor, on the back, it could be either hugging one knee at a time in towards your chest and extending and lengthening the other leg out. This is more relaxed, more supported. Good. And then the alternative too could be hugging both knees into your chest. That's like a supine child's pose. But for many of us, I think hugging one knee at a time and extending the other leg out is just as effective and may have some other advantages like extension at the hip flexor of the leg that's lengthened on the floor. And of course, you're breathing, letting your body feel well supported. If you need a pillow beneath your head or any other level of support that helps this feel very beneficial for you, please do so. And you always have the option to hug both knees into the chest, but at least find completion. If you're hugging one knee in, make sure you spend as much time on the other side as well. Then when you're ready, go ahead and place your feet back on down to the floor. Okay, arms and shoulders. We didn't really focus a lot on shoulder mobility yet here today. We did a lot of nice things with the Robin's breath movement, but we didn't do a lot of extension overhead. So either with lengthened arms or if you have any shoulder instability or pain, you're going to try to keep your elbows bent and reaching up and overhead to try to get your fingers to maybe touch. Maybe you can even rest the backs of your hands on the floor up there, but don't be afraid to keep the elbows more bent. That will tend to be a little safer for shoulders. But as much extension up and overhead as you can, full, complete breaths. If it would feel good, you can also stretch out through your legs as well, getting a full body extension which I, again, would encourage you to try to do something similar to this every single day. It is the counter pose to all the sitting that we do throughout our day. So much sitting and not enough of this kind of expansion. So obviously this can be done quite nicely in your bed. First thing in the morning before you get out of bed, take about 3 full breaths doing something like this. Maybe if you're taking a nap anytime, find a way of incorporating some kind of full body extension when you can into your day. But for now, we'll go ahead and lower arms on down to the sides comfortably, and once again, bend both knees, plant your feet to the floor, sitting upright nice and tall. All right, one of my favorites, again with the focus on the back, getting relief and nourishment for the back, is a spinal twist. So I myself, my body really likes to have a little bit of extra support as I return my legs off to one side. So you might find if you have any kind of thing that might support there, if needed, keep that in mind. Also, opening out your arms nice and wide apart as best you can. Let them be fully supported on the floor. And you're going to try to keep the backs of your shoulders in contact with the floor, even as you begin to let your hips and your legs, your knees, pointing over towards the left. I recommend going to the left first. It's not a huge big deal if you go to the right. A lot of teachers do suggest going to the right first, more or less kind of out of habit. But there are some beneficial things that you're supporting your organ systems in the abdominal region here, specifically your large intestine, to help support the movement of digestion. And keep that going the way we'd like it to be. Then taking your legs over to the left first might help give that a little extra compression, squeeze, in a way that's actually going to help the movement of digestion through the large intestine. But again, this is a really great pose for your back, tightness through the lumbar spine, the low back, and the hip region, maybe even your IT band, the outer thigh here. And I always want you to check in with your head and your neck as well, and release any tension as possible by slowly exploring other ways of positioning your head, turning to look over one side, turning to look to the other, finding a good comfortable position for your head to rest in eventually. And don't forget that sometimes neck tension is the result of jaw tension. So consciously release and relax your jaw and see if that can kind of help the rest of your neck kind of let go and find comfort. We'll be here for just a few more breaths, but of course you can always stay longer. All right, when you feel ready, we're going to slowly come back to a centered position, knees pointing straight up. Take a few moments to make any adjustments in your body, or if you're like me, you like that extra prop to support the legs when they go to the twist to the other side. Transfer things over. Again, broad across your chest and shoulders, backs of the shoulders stay in contact with the floor as you rotate hips, pelvis, legs over towards your right. Finding a way to be comfortable here and get as relaxed as you can so you can focus on deep, full breaths. The more expansive belly breaths that you can take here, the more that massage that you're going to be getting here, nourishing all these internal organs in the region, not just the digestive organs, but we've got the spleen and the kidneys, the liver, adrenals, all kinds of things that can be really nourished and massaged when we get our body into a position like this, relaxed and comfortable, and taking deep, full breaths. Check in on your neck again, head position. And I want you to, at the very least, feel like you've spent as much time in this side as you did on the first side, if it's comfortable. Now, of course, if your body ever gives you that guidance that, oh, wow, that's a little touchy, I better come out of this one sooner, absolutely, you're going to honor that. But going for an equal amount of time is nice. So you give your body that sense of symmetry. And you may also find and give yourself permission to stay in the position longer, feeling the effects that are like, oh, this is just what I need to be doing, and staying in it longer. So very much, the practice is about empowering yourself, empowering that positive body-mind connection, so that you feel uh, uh, very much in a good relationship, to find the best ways of supporting your body in each and every moment. So yoga, as I think we all know by now, is more than just a physical practice. We focus on mind, breath, energy, soul, spirit, if you're so inclined, all of that yoking together, coming together in a nice refined balance, and working together for our total well-being. And so if you're feeling complete on that second side of your spinal twist, coming back to center, and again, taking a few moments to make any little adjustments in your body so you feel rebalanced back at your center. Maybe there's a whole stretch or body position that you'd like to spend a little more time in. Then from there, I'd like you to find the best way to be relaxed and comfortable in your body for the next several minutes while we do a relaxation practice, helping your body to really integrate and absorb and make the most of all that we've done in here today. And the practice of conscious relaxation in itself, super important. Balancing through the nervous system, we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is the rest and digest and heal and renew. So finding the most comfortable position for you to relax in for the next few moments, whether you're reclining on your chair, stretched out on the floor, or maybe you're like me, going to do this experience more in a seated position, but I'd like you to feel as comfortable and nourished as possible, whatever position you're choosing. And then allow your eyes to close. And once again, come fully into the present moment and the experience of you, your body, breathing in this moment. Lovingly exploring around your body, shining the light of your awareness, making note of things that may feel very different now compared to the beginning of our class. Making note of any sensations, not just the more nagging discomfort, but also really registering the places all through your body that feel rather good, not demanding your attention, but doing just fine on their own, which means you've done some really good things. Allowing your body to relax more and more. If you're in a fully reclined position, allow your body to really melt into that support. Otherwise, just sense as much softening and relaxing as you can throughout your face, your neck, your shoulders, your back, your hips, legs, and feet. Also feeling soft and nourished throughout your belly, throughout your chest, your arms, and of course your hands. Feel your body breathing just as it is. Few more moments. And of course, you may feel like this is a great place for you to stay longer, continuing to receive this nourishing, healing practice as long as you would like. And then for those of us that are feeling ready and needing to close out our practice for now, you can start to wiggle through your fingers, feeling through your hands. You can start to turn your head gently from side to side, reactivating some of the neck muscles, feeling the cervical spine, blinking open your eyes when you're ready to take in the visual field around you and try to project gratitude to everywhere your eyes are glancing towards. Gratitude to the space all around you, and gratitude to all of the elements that came together for you, allowing you to be here, joining into this powerful practice. And also feeling grateful in your heart for your body and its abilities, all that you were able to do here in our practice today. And if you feel comfortable joining your hands together at your heart center one last time, and please accept my gratitude. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Namaste.